City, Detroit, Michigan. This is Conversations with Lavish. It's time for us all to come together. Young, old, and everyone in between. Lavish talks about business, news, politics, networking, and anything else that's going on in the world. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Lavish Towing, and on YouTube at Lavish T. Williams. This is Lavish T. Williams.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Lavish. Today, we have Anthony Adams on the show today. If you don't know who Anthony Adams is, he's a mayoral candidate running for the Detroit mayor's position for the city of Detroit. So everybody give a warm round of applause to Anthony Adams.
All right. Hey, that's pretty neat, man.
Yeah, man, high tech. It's lavish type of stuff.
Lavish.
You know? Yeah. So Anthony, man, how you doing, man? I'm glad to have you on the show today.
Man, first of all, thank you for having me on my show. Being able to talk with your people. I'm just excited about the opportunity to have a real conversation about Detroit.
Man, that's what we talking about, man. That's what we here to do. Right. Have a real conversation about Detroit. Now, you're trying to run for mayor. What made you decide that you wanted to run for mayor?
Well, when you look around and see what's going on in this city, when you see poverty rates as high as they are, when you see crime that's out of control, when you see more than 150,000 people have lost their homes as a result of tax foreclosures, when we've had more than 100,000 people had their water shut off, when you look at the average income of a Detroiter, especially an African-American woman being less than $30,000, I just felt there was a need for fundamental change in the direction of the city of Detroit. And so I offer myself for leadership to the citizens.
Okay, I mean, that's good. So outside of being the mayor, people, they want to know, what have you done in the community in the last few years?
Man, I've been involved in our community for a long time. My initial job was an executive assistant to Coleman Young. I was a 27-year-old, quote, hotshot whiz kid hired to be involved in economic development and participated in a number of economic development projects, whether it was the initial Chrysler Jefferson plant expansion, whether it was the initial Cobo Hall expansion, whether it was the People Mover, development of the People Mover, whether it was restoring a commercial air service to Detroit City Airport, whether it was helping to develop the first residential subdivision in the city of Detroit, whether it was being involved in a number of community organizations and boards, whether it was the Wayne County Legal Services Board, which provides indigent legal services. I've just been uniquely involved in a lot of different activities, and that's just the early part of my life. We also can talk about the fact that I was deputy mayor for the city of Detroit with Kwame Kilpatrick. I was the elected school board member, as well as serving as president of the Detroit Board of Education. I worked as interim director of the Detroit Water and Sewer Department. I've had a number of positions. I've worked very closely with the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization. I worked very closely with Detroit Legal Aid Society, and just doing a lot of things that have impacted and tried to improve the quality of life of people who live in the city of Detroit.
Okay, that sounds like you got a long line of stuff that you've done.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
And there are a lot of things that I've done that, quite frankly, I just do the work.
Okay.
It's not always about getting credit for what you do. It's just about going about your business and working with people, whether it's leading up the social justice ministry of my church, participating in just a number of food programs throughout the city, providing housing services and legal services to keep people from being evicted. I just have a long track record of being involved in our city and doing the things that are necessary in order to move our city forward.
All right, that's cool. That's great to hear. Now, you speak on, what was that? You were a former assistant mayor?
A former executive assistant to Coleman Young, that's correct.
Okay, and then you worked with Kilpatrick.
I was the deputy mayor under Kwame.
So when people hear you're running for mayor and they hear Kwame Kilpatrick, how does that affect you? Does that affect you at all? Because I hear, and I'm sure people try to compare you and him as far as his administration. Can you elaborate about that, distinguish you from him?
Well, first of all, I'm very proud of the fact that I worked for the city of Detroit, during his administration. It was a time when the city was facing tremendous financial crisis. As you know, there was a lot of conversation in Detroit about the city was going to go bankrupt, that we were going to lose political control. And actually, through our efforts, we were able to do a lot of things in order to keep the city out of bankruptcy. And so when they talk about my career with Kilpatrick, I say my record speaks for itself. I'm here today. I've distinguished myself. I've continued to work in the community. You know, he is he, I am him. He was a tremendously talented young man. It's unfortunate that his issues got the best of him, but I'm not him. I'm a different person. I existed before Kilpatrick, and I certainly would have existed after Kilpatrick. But he's someone that I'm from the old school in politics. You know, you don't throw people under the bus. I've been given many opportunities to try to distance myself from him. I don't know why I would do that, because it is what it is. It's a part of my history, and I have to own that and accept responsibility for my actions and what I've done.
Okay, great answer. I asked that because, you'll hear people, hey, he's probably connected, and they always put a negative. They always put a negative light.
Yeah,
on the next person running that was associated with the past. They'll compare you to him. So I wanted to definitely address that.
But I think there are a lot of positive things that we also need to talk about during that administration. Because
Correct.
I think one thing that we have to understand, there is a serious spin job going on in the city of Detroit about what occurred. And we have to take ownership of the very positive things that occurred. When they talk about the creation of the Riverfront Conservancy in the Riverfront Walks, well, that was Kwame Kilpatrick. When they talk about the creation of Eastern Market Corporation, which transformed how Eastern Market looks, that was Kwame Kilpatrick. When you talk about Dan Gilbert, for better for worse, coming to the city of Detroit, that was Kwame Kilpatrick. A lot of the foundations of the things that occurred in the city now have their origins in the Kilpatrick administration. And so I don't want people to walk away thinking that it was all bad.
Okay.
But that there was a lot of positive things that occurred while we worked there, including the fact that the city did not go bankrupt. The city did not lose control of the water department. There are a lot of things that people can look at, and when they look at our record of what was accomplished and what we held on to, I think they would have a much different perspective on how things have gone in the city of Detroit.
Okay, that's great. Now that you mentioned the water department.
Yes.
So this is a personal thing that I have about the water department. Is there any way that we can get out of that water runoff?
Yeah, there is.
I mean, because I personally, listen, I feel like Detroit, we're the hub, we're the supplier of the water.
Right.
And we, the residents, we have to pay for water runoff, even on vacant land.
Yes.
That we don't have no structure on. We're being charged a fee. Other cities, they're not. Other city water bills, some of them, they're not every month. They're bi-monthly, every 3-4 months. And their water bill is nowhere close to what we, the citizens of Detroit, pay.
Right. And so what we've got to understand is that there are a lot of things to, as they say, unpack in that discussion of the water drainage fee. We first of all have to recognize that the decision to separate and strip the water department away from the city of Detroit was a political decision gained at allowing the suburbs to control our water system and also impose a tax on the citizens in the city of Detroit, which they've done quite effectively. The second issue is the fact that water that flows into our system, because of how our system was designed to force all the water in the city at one time into our sewer system. That's an old construct of how infrastructure should be developed. And what we need to be moving towards is more of a green infrastructure approach. How do we divert water from going into the system? How do we create green conservation districts in our city so that we are not paying to process all this rainwater in the city of Detroit? It's a fundamental change in how we actually design, how we utilize our parks, use them for water runoff districts and conservation districts, so we can begin to reduce the amount of water runoff in the city of Detroit. The water runoff fee is killing businesses. It's killing churches. It's killing the residential homeowners. The largest portion of most people's bill now is not the water bill, it's the drainage bill. And so we've got to begin to change and upstream how we process water, how we create water conservation districts, how we use our money to flow out and put water out in other areas in the city so we can reduce that drainage fee. So it's possible to do it, but we just have to have a commitment to a green conservation district so that we can make that happen.
And that's something that you are willing to work on.
Well, that's something that we can do. When you look at the infrastructure money, for example, that's been promised by President Biden in his infrastructure package, why are we not culling off a portion of those dollars to do and create green conservation districts in the city? It's also a job creation strategy that can allow some of our young men and young women who maybe have a low skill levels to still be gainfully employed. If we're talking about upgrading and improving the quality of life in the city, we have got to use the money. We've got to use the dollars to create opportunities for our young people to become meaningful citizens here in the city of Detroit. And that green conservation district, a water runoff fee, we can reduce that fee if we're committed to making that happen.
Yeah, I think that's what we need to focus on.
Right.
That's one of the problems that I feel we have.
Right.
I don't think too many people are speaking about it as they once were.
Right.
But it's still there. It still exists.
Well, we gotta be much more loud in what we do in the city. You know,
Right.
part of the problem from my perspective is that people have become very complacent in what's going on in the city. They don't complain as much as they used to. And I think part of that is that people just have been beat down and they're just trying to go about their life and just live their life as best they can. But when you look at the perpetual payment plans that people have in the city of Detroit, whether it's a perpetual payment plan with the Wayne County Treasurer, what's a perpetual payment plan with DTE, whether it's a payment plan with the Detroit Water and Sewer Department, we got people living under perpetual payment plans, which is really another form of economic exploitation. And I'm running to reduce and eliminate the level of economic exploitation that exists in our city because we control our destiny. I hate this defeatist attitude that I hear in people about, well, it is what it is. No, no, that's not true. It's what we make it. And we've got to be much more definitive and much more aggressive in how we go about our business.
Okay. Now, I know a lot of people, when it comes down to elections and it comes down to voting, people see a politician, a political figure, as just for the moment.
Right.
If you were to lose this election, what would you do?
That's not in my mindset. So I can't even begin to answer that question because I cannot accept defeat mentally because that would be put me in the same class of the people who have a defeatist attitude in the city of Detroit. People in this city need to see someone who's going to fight for them, who believes that he can win.
Now, we want somebody that's going to fight for us.
We're going to fight.
We want somebody that's going to win. We want somebody that's going to fight, but we want somebody that's going to fight after the election.
Right.
We want somebody that's going to be there after the election because it's so easy for political figures to reach out to the community, touch everybody before they get in office.
Right.
But what about after they get in office? That's when we really need you, and everybody seems to be so disconnected at that point from the person that they helped put in office.
Right.
How do you plan on still being active in the community
Well,
if and when you win this election?
Okay, now I like that question. So part of what we have to understand is that we have to continue to be connected and still be grounded in what goes on in our community. And things I do now are things that I have not done any different. I've always been a part of the community. I've always worked with organizations. I've always been involved in charitable activities. I've always been involved in things that are forceful to try to change the quality of life. And being the mayor gives me a much bigger platform to really address a lot of the fundamental issues in the city of Detroit. You got to stay connected. You got to stay connected with the people who get you elected. The one problem that most politicians have, and quite frankly, I don't consider myself a politician. I actually consider myself a statesman. But one problem that they have is that they lose connection and ground with the people who got them there. And you have to continue to maintain contact. You have to continue to reach out and go out into the community. One great thing about Mayor Young, which he always did, was there was nobody on his staff who didn't stay in the office all day long. You had to go to the family reunions. You had to go to the barbecues. You had to go to Belle Isle where churches were meeting. You had to go to a house party and present a little certificates, a letter from Coleman Young. That was a high point of a lot of people's career. And part of my administration is to keep my staff out in the community. You can't be disconnected from the people that you serve. We are here to be servant leaders, to provide what our citizens need, to work hard every day, and to bring that energy and bring that intellect and bring that courage and bring that fire Because people, this 911 time for Detroit.
Yeah,
I tell
agree.
you, it's 911. We can't be complacent. We've got to be aggressive. We've got to be clear about where we're going and how we're going to move this city forward. And I think there are a number of things we can do that can reduce the burden, the highest per capita tax rate in America, the highest level of murders in America, the highest levels of poverty in America. These things require you to be totally committed to changing the existence of people's lives. And if you're not committed to that, you can't work in my administration.
How can we reduce the taxes, the property taxes?
All right. So
what's your strategy and what do you see? Because from the outside, we see it as a bill.
Yes.
They're charging us all this money for what? And we feel that it's just so easy for the city to say, hey, we're going to reduce the cost of these taxes. Why is it that Detroit residents pay so much in these taxes? Also, what is it that you can do as a mayor to actually not just talk about it, but get some of these taxes lowered?
Oh, yeah. I love that question because it really allows me to explain to people what the makeup of their tax bill is. Because there are major component parts of our tax bill, which are debt service tied, for example, to our Detroit public schools, where we've had more than $2.5 billion worth of debt that we're continuing to pay for, and we'll continue to pay for the next 30, 40 years. That portion of the bill probably can't be touched because it is what it is. But there are other component parts and how you actually reduce people's tax bills. And so part of my approach is we got to begin to equalize the level of taxation in the city of Detroit. We have to reduce the burden by reassessing people's property. Because what we found in a study done by the University of Chicago, Professor Bernadette Atahene, who's done a lot of work on tax foreclosures in the city of Detroit, is what we find that people who live in neighborhoods where their houses are lower value, they're actually overassessed given the nature of how tax assessments work, whereas people who live in areas like Palmer Woods and Sherwood Forest, they're actually underassessed, if you can believe that, given the value of their homes. And so the first thing we got to do, we got to deal with the issue of that $600 million of overtaxation. We've had to provide reparations for the people who live in the city of Detroit. And part of my plan and reparations plan is to provide people with a tax credit against their current property taxes. But we also have to begin to reassess where these people are, how they're being taxed, in order to reduce their property tax burden. There are things that the mayor's office can do, working through the assessor, to begin to reduce the level of tax burden. We also have to provide much more support for a lot of the tax programs that are currently on the books. Whether you're a senior citizen, you shouldn't have to requalify for a tax credit for a senior citizen every year. Okay. Hell, if you're more than 65, 70 years old, we know it, you prove it, that should be a matter of course. It should be done administratively. You shouldn't have to do that. We've got to begin to reduce that. And then we also have to reduce exactly what we borrow for the city of Detroit. You know, it was a big push for that proposal in, which kept our tax millage rate much higher than it could have been because the citizens voted for the bond out of that debt. We got to be very careful about how we spend what we borrow for. We got to kind of almost live within our means, so to speak. That will allow us to reduce what we actually charge people on their tax bills. And so it's a multi-pronged approach. One is understanding that when you come in there with a high tax bill, I need to figure out how I can reduce your tax bill. Once I figure out how I can reduce your tax bill, I'm also got to give you credit for what you've paid in the amount of overassessment. If you've lost your house as a result of overassessment, then we've got to create some type of compensation plan over time that pays you back what you've lost in your property taxation. There's got to be a commitment to doing this. If there's no commitment, it won't happen.
And I mean, that sounds great. Sounds great. But the reality of the residents getting their money back.
Yes.
What's the real reality of that?
Is that it can happen.
That it can happen.
Exactly.
You believe
it might not
happen.
be a direct cash payment back to you because that does have some financial implications on the city. But what I am saying is that if you're still in your house, me providing you with the ability to take credit against your income taxes and or property taxes is like getting cash and money in your pocket. And for those people who've lost their homes, I think we got to figure out how we compensate them for their loss.
Okay. The taxes, and I know that this probably lingers over to a county issue. You get on a payment plan.
Right.
But from the way that I see it, the payment plan is not really designed to really get you
No.
off the payment plan.
Exactly.
Because by the time you're done with this year,
Right.
next year you have to get right back on the payment plan. And the interest that they're charging these residents is
18%.
ridiculous.
Yes.
Most of these people can barely afford to live and survive on what they're getting paid,
Right.
you know, working a regular 9 to 5.
Right.
Some of these people, they can't afford to find jobs.
Right.
A lot of you got people that's been incarcerated, that's felons, that's out here trying to find a way. They're not able to be employed to take care of the household to pay the taxes, and they're raping them. I say the word raping them. They're taking advantage of them with these overpriced taxes and the interest that goes along with it. Why is there so much interest involved?
Well, it's a part of the statute that was adopted that allows for the Wayne County Treasurer to impose this tax assessment. It is by law. He really has no discretion on that. They passed a couple of bills which allowed him to reduce what the interest rate would be. But this is the issue. This is what I want people to understand. The city doesn't have to send your property taxes to the Wayne County Treasurer. That's an administrative decision that's made by the city. And under my administration, we will not be forwarding past due tax bills to the county so that people will be hit with that 18% interest rate. We have to manage that process for ourselves. And when people come in and they can't pay their taxes, the first thing I got to figure out is, are your taxes really properly assessed? We can take the opportunity through the assessor's office to re-examine your tax bill. It could be that you're being over-assessed, and if that in fact is the case, then we're going to work to reduce your property tax burden and then figure out, because we need to manage our own issues. We don't need to pass them to the county treasurer to manage for us. They're our citizens. We're responsible for making sure that they don't lose their homes. When you have more than 150,000 people lose their homes as a result of tax foreclosure, but you had the city that had $500 million that was designed through the hardest hit funds to keep people in their houses, I don't understand why people aren't in the outrage about that.
Yeah,
$500 million, I could have kept my house, and then I get overtaxed, and you mean to tell me you had money to keep me in that house, and you took my house? Please, if I had been the mayor, trust me, they would be marching on City Hall. They'd be marching on my house. I couldn't go to Baker's Keyboard Lounge and hang out. I couldn't go nowhere.
So what are they doing with the money? Where's the money going?
Well, a lot of that money obviously went to other entities other than the city of Detroit, like the school district, like the DIA Art Museum, like the zoo, because they all got a little piece of that money. All I'm saying is that we've got to stop the madness. We got to stop transferring our property taxes to the county treasurer, which puts a person in an 18% payment plan, which is almost usurious interest. We got to manage that process for ourselves. We got to go back and re-examine their taxes to make sure that they're being properly assessed. We got to adjust their taxes, and then we provide them with the relief that they need. We don't need to shirk that responsibility to the Wayne County Treasurer. We need to do that ourselves.
Okay. When it comes down to making decisions, and I know you have different steps, different people. You have the mayors, you have the city council, and the list goes on.
It seems like over the last 4 years, we really haven't had a city council. But that's a whole nother conversation. I know. That's me, not you.
Those your words.
I know.
But what I will ask, and I want to know, do you plan on having the residents more involved with decision making?
Yes.
Because it seems like when people get these positions, these are my words. When people get these positions, they seem to forget about the people that put them in their positions.
Yes.
And they don't give a vote based off of what the residents want. They give a vote based off of what they want, what they feel, what they think is in the best interest of the city. And half the time, we don't even know what's really going on.
Right.
And if you don't keep up with the politics, then you really have no idea as to what's going on.
So what you have to do is, first of all, you got to maintain an open door policy, and with organizations and groups that help move your agenda forward. I got to be accountable. You know, people have to hold their elected officials accountable, but by the same token, I also have to hold myself accountable and understand the awesome responsibility of being the mayor of Detroit. It's an awesome responsibility. And I understand how awesome that is because I've been there when things go bad and things don't turn out quite the way people want them, which created a level of disappointment. And so I gotta stay connected. I've got to stay grounded, but also have to respect the communities and what the people want in the communities. Part of the problem that we get now is that there is a real heavy-handed, paternalistic attitude that people, how the administration deals with the people in the city of Detroit. I don't believe we need a high level of paternalism. We don't need an overseer in our city. What we need is communication with the people to talk and understand what it is they want, what direction they want. And I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn because I don't know it all. And I'm here to move forward with an agenda that encompasses what people want to see. And so that requires a lot of extra work on the part of the mayor to stay out in the community, to stay out in the streets, to talk with people every day so that we understand that we represent you. We don't represent ourselves. This is our responsibility, and I'm committed to being that type of leader.
Okay, because I think, as I say, I think
sounds good.
so many people, when they get in these positions, they don't involve the residents. And then the residents, at some point, they get into an outrage.
Yeah.
And then they try to cover it all up in these big meetings, and they use these fancy words and, mislead people.
Yeah, but we can't. We've been misled long enough, and we've got to peel back the onion. We got to let people understand what the real nature of the problem is. How things all fit together. Why is your tax bill so high? Why are you paying water drain off? People don't really understand why that is because they figure it's raining, it go in the sewer and it gets dumped in the water.
Correct.
So how do we explain to you what that is? But then how do we transform our city so that we can reduce these types of things from impacting how people live? Because the more I can reduce your drainage fee, the more I can reduce your income tax, the more I can reduce your property taxes, that gives you much more money in your pocket to change your life. And by the way, we got to begin to help people where they are. What is my plan for assisting the people in the community to uplift the quality of your life? I fundamentally believe, because of how I was raised by my mother, raised by a single woman who never went to college, but was a very hard worker, very spiritual woman. And I believe in the intrinsic fundamental good nature of man. Now, it's cost me sometimes because people not as nice as I want them to be. But I still believe in the goodness of man, and that people want what's best for themselves and what's best for their children. And we just have to help people where they are to move up and improve their life.
Okay, that's great. That's a good answer. I want to go back to the proposal N thing.
Yes.
You voted no on it.
Oh, hell yes.
For the people that don't know what proposal N is, Prop N, and you vote no for it, can you explain that to them so they can have an idea of what it was and your reason for voting no on it?
Yeah, so after spending more than $500 million of federal money to demolish property in the city of Detroit, and when you go back and look at over the last 8 years, it's probably been more like $750 million of our tax dollars have gone to demolition. And we had 150,000 people lost their homes. Proposal N was an additional borrowing to finance $250 million more of funding for demolition, and they said rehabilitation. But now, and they also sold that on the fact that unions would be involved, that homes would be rehabilitated, that black contractors would get money, because when you look at the first $500 million that they spent, black contractors get less than $5 million. It was all because there were federal rules that prohibited us from giving black contractors work. But you gave money to your friends, so I'm not buying that. So I voted no on proposal because I knew it was going to be a ruse on the people who lived in the city. I knew that the unions were going to get screwed, which now they've come up, they got screwed. I knew there was not going to be a robust rehabilitation plan, which there currently is no robust rehabilitation plan, and that they trot out some black contractors who got the first packages. But we all know that's an election year ploy because they always roll out black folks in the election year to act as if they're doing something positive for the people in the city. My issue is that we got to create more home ownership in the city of Detroit. We got 55 to 60% of the people in this city actually renting their homes. That is not a recipe for a robust city. I believe that our focus should be on, first, we got to stabilize people in their houses, which means that you got to reduce their tax burden so they don't lose their house as a result of a Wayne County tax foreclosure. But then more importantly, making sure that people get what they need in order to stay in their houses. I've walked this city from the east side to the west side. There are three problems I see in a lot of houses.
What's that?
The first is the front porch is hit, okay? The second one is that there's siding missing off the house, and you see that a lot. The third is the roof is done went bad. And so if we're talking about keeping people in their homes and reducing blight, then what we need to do is help people fix their front porch, help them put the siding back on their house, and help them keep a roof on their house. How many houses can you ride down in the city of Detroit and see the big blue tarp on the roof or the front porch hit? Why are we not helping the people where they are and providing them with the resources that they need? And oh, by the way, we also need to be helping our senior citizens. There's always a lady on the block. I'm sure there's a lady on this block.
Correct.
Who's been in her house for 50 years. And she don't want to go nowhere because that's her house. That's what she know. How are we not helping our seniors age in place, provide them with the services that they need and the support that they need? Again, I go back to, I said, this 911 time, it's 911 time for the people in this city. And if we're not 911 focused on helping our people, then we don't need to be in these positions.
No, you don't. Okay, well, he explained what Prop N was, and that was great because you get a lot of people that they go to these elections. They look at the elections, they go down here to vote, and they see vote yes, vote no, and they don't really know what they're voting for. And I think we need more voter education out here so they can be more engaged in what's going on, because a lot of people, they just don't have the knowledge.
Well, it's a very visual thing. It's a very emotional thing, because when you look back over the history of the city of Detroit, Detroit has actually rejected very few proposals to increase taxes on themselves. I remember in 1985, there was a big issue about the city potentially going into bankruptcy, and Coleman Young actually pushed through a income tax increase on this, that the citizens actually voted for. And this was during a time when they were rolling back tax increases across the nation. When it comes to schools, our voters have consistently stepped up. When it comes to making sure that our neighborhoods are safe, our voters have consistently stepped up. But the question is, what have they got for their stepping up? They got high tax bills, they got loss of housing in their city, and they haven't gotten the benefit of the bargain. So I'm saying, let's talk about what we really need to do, how we live within our means, how do we structure ourselves so that we can provide the services for people who actually need services. That's what we really need to be about.
Okay, that's what we need.
Okay,
we definitely need services. What we need, actually, I guess my biggest thing is actually people that's going to come through,
right,
and not just so much talk about it.
Yes.
We need some action behind the talk.
Right.
How do you feel about the development that's going on in the city?
Well, when you look at downtown, it's great. I mean, you got billions of dollars of tax abatements. Abatement means I'm taking a tax from you and I'm letting someone else use that tax money for themselves.
Okay.
And the irony of that is we're taking money from you on where you live and me on where I live, and we're giving it to Dan Gilbert, who's already got billions of dollars. And so Dan Gilbert by himself has gotten close to $2.5 billion of tax relief. Now, what would happen if we had that $2.5 billion of tax relief with that money flowing into the community? Maybe your property tax bill could be much lower. Maybe your income tax bill could be lower. No one sees the connection between what happens in downtown Detroit and what happens in the neighborhood, because it's kind of hard to understand. I'm saying this: if they're taking taxes from you to put downtown, there's less money that I can put in the neighborhood to do what we need to do. And so downtown is great. I don't think they need any more abatements. I don't need any more tax captures, because those tax captures are actually impacting how we deliver education services in the city of Detroit. We have taxes being taken away from our school system, and we have a school system that cannot build any new buildings because they don't have the ability to borrow any money to fix up the quality of the schools in our city. Why are we crazy enough to allow that to continue to happen? That's crazy. And our libraries, they're taking money away from them so that the very institutions that's designed to uplift and provide people with the quality of learning and enhancing their own personal lives, the libraries are closed practically. So I'm just saying we got to stop that. We gotta reduce what we give downtown, and we gotta put that money in the neighborhoods, in our libraries, and in our schools. And that's a simple thing to do if you're committed to making that happen.
Now, what can we do to actually get some of these big corporations that's coming in here, doing all these deals? I don't know the whole politics of the deals, but I'm sure that it's a lot of backdoor deals going on.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, facts.
Yeah,
They might not talk about it, but I'm sure it is. How can we make those corporations that's coming in wanting to develop new whatever's in the city come into these neighborhoods? Because these neighborhoods, they're falling apart.
Well, this is the fundamental development strategy of Detroit for the last 60 years has been based on the home run. I got to build a new Chrysler Jefferson expansion project. I got to build stadiums in downtown Detroit. I got to give Dan Gilbert billions of dollars in tax abatements to build his businesses. But when you look at Dan Gilbert and who he employs, I don't think he's employing the level of Detroiters based on the benefit that he's getting. So part of the problem is that the deal is not a good deal for the city when you look at it. I believe that the philosophy should be actually a little different. I believe we should flip that philosophy and focus our attention on helping the people who actually have businesses in the neighborhood. If you got 38,000 small businesses in the city of Detroit and you gave each one of them a tax break to hire one person, you've created 38,000 jobs with the flip of a pen without billions of dollars of abatements that we're giving to billionaires who don't give us any money back.
Don't give us any money back.
And so when they talk about, oh, he's got this great plan to, I'm going to donate $500 million. Well, hell, you got $2.5 billion. And if you really want to help the people in the city of Detroit, change the institutional rules which prohibit lending on properties of less than $50,000 to $60,000 to rewrite everybody's mortgage in the city of Detroit, give them a 1% interest rate or maybe 0% interest rate. That's helping the people in the city of Detroit. That means I can go get a home improvement loan. I can fix my roof, fix my front porch, and put siding on my house to stay in my home so that I don't lose my property because I'm being overtaxed and I have no way to go. And that's why I'm saying we're going to flip the strategy and the philosophy. I'm not concerned with the big box developers. Those things are wonderful. They look nice. It's an ego. I'm talking about the guy who got the clothing store on Joy Road, and he's his own businessman. He get up every morning. He go do what he do. He might employ a little kid to come sweep the shop in the morning. He employs some people, at night. That's what I'm focused on. The small projects, small business people who've survived through things and have never gotten one dime. They make this great pitch about Motor City Match. Motor City, what? The guy I'm talking to at the game room, or the wing store, he's like, man, I can't get through the process. So why is that Detroit people can't get through the process, but you're going to show me somebody who's new to the city? And I'm not mad about people who come here because we need people. But I'm saying at the end of the day, when we're talking about how we spend our money and who our money go to, it got to go to the people who live here.
I agree. Now, what do you think? Do you feel like Detroiters are being pushed out of Detroit?
Of course they're being.
I mean, I look around, gentrification has came in and taken a lot of people out of their homes.
Yes.
They done bought properties to push them out, to build new stuff. So now they're getting all of us out of the city, bringing in a whole bunch of different type of people, different businesses, different this and that. And at some point in times, I feel like we're becoming extinct in our own city.
Well, we have to become relevant politically. And see, that solves that problem, because if you got the right people in place to push the agenda, that won't occur. And so part of what is happening with the gentrification model that they employ is they use, for example, our affordable housing dollars, money that we get from the federal government, to build mixed income developments where I will set aside a certain percentage of the units for people at affordable rates. What they're not telling you is that most of the units that they set aside are either studio and 1-bedroom apartments. And the people in the city of Detroit, we need the 3-bedroom, the 4-bedroom, the 5-bedroom. So we're going to stop that whole numbers game. We're going to use those affordable housing dollars to create more home ownership in our city so that people aren't being forced out. And then there's some other, I call them subtle issues, like Section 8 certificates, the Detroit Housing Commission. A lot of the Section 8 certificates that the Detroit Housing Commission has are actually being used to subsidize housing outside the city of Detroit. I think that's insane that we are taking our Section 8 certificates, which gives you the ability to charge a market rate rent, and we're telling people they have to live outside the city of Detroit. Why is that? If we're talking about stabilizing our neighborhoods and giving people the opportunity to live where they grew up, then we have to use all of the tools that we have to keep people in their homes. This is part of the insanity and the madness that continues to go on in our city, and we got to stop it because people don't see it because it's a slow creep. You got a Section 8 certificate? Why don't you move to Warren? Why don't you move to Macomb County? There's a nice place out there. They got great schools. I'm saying, hell, we need people in the city of Detroit. I need people committed to stay here to fight for the city. We've got to have a swag about ourselves, and we got to have a desire to make it better for ourselves. If we don't have that desire, I said it all along, we don't need to be here.
And that's where I go back into talking about when we talk about the Section 8. They pushing people out. So here it is. You have these lifelong Detroit residents.
Right.
They're being pushed out of Detroit. Listen, let me tell you what happens when I go downtown in Detroit. It's a whole new Detroit.
Right.
It's to the point where certain people that used to go downtown, they don't even feel comfortable going downtown anymore.
Right.
They're bothered.
Yeah.
They're looked at different. It's like everything done turned all the way around.
Yeah.
It's not the Detroit downtown that I grew up. I grew up catching the bus to Cadillac Square.
All right.
Getting on the Shane bus, going to the east side to school.
Okay, what?
You know, it was Newton.
Newton.
Yeah, it was Shane and Mac. You know,
right.
I was going to school over there.
Why they say you on the
from
east
here.
side to go to school?
You know what, man? I had to go somewhere where there was more people like me. I wasn't the best of the best when I was in middle school.
Yeah, but you know, you see, part of what we understand is that when people say that, is really that your intelligence and your desire, they didn't understand the skills that you brought to the table. And oftentimes what happens in education is that people get lost in the sauce because what they offer and their talents and skills, people simply don't understand and appreciate, which is why you have to have teachers who understand the culture, who understand how we all work together, because we're all part of a much broader and bigger community.
Okay. So your first 90 days being in office.
Yes.
What do you plan on doing? What's your objective?
Well, first off, I'm gonna have you come down to the Manoogian man. I'm gonna have you come down to the 11th floor in the Coleman A. Young. We're gonna set up this wonderful equipment that you got. People you already really need to understand how he has it set up here, and we're gonna do a podcast, and we're gonna talk about what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Clearly, keeping people stabilized in post-COVID is priority number one. We have a lot of things that are going to fall off the books. We've got the eviction moratorium. It's going to fall off the books. They talk about the water shut-off moratorium. Well, we know the game that they're going to play. It's not going to happen to me. That's going to stay in place. The tax foreclosure issue, we're going to keep people stabilized in their homes. We got to create a post-COVID environment. We also have to ensure that people have the right services in place. We got to recognize that it wasn't all about a vaccine, but it's actually about getting people healthy in the city of Detroit. We talk so much about getting a shot, but ain't nobody talking about you need to get out and exercise. We need to make sure you have healthy food. We need to make sure you have access to health care and things of that nature. Mental health services are a big part of what we need to recognize. The endemic level of violence that we have in our community is part and parcel of a structural racist issue where people are living in constant stress and fear. And when you live in constant stress and fear, you do crazy things. So we got to be much more intentional at how we intervene in our population to help people out. We have to make sure that our affordable housing dollars are going where they need to go. And we also have to work on this infrastructure plan that we have to create opportunities for people to be meaningfully employed in jobs that they can do. And we also need to train them for jobs that they can't do. If we're getting billions of dollars in infrastructure money, I'll be damned if I'm going to sit up here and let contractors come in and tell me they can't hire Detroit people. We'll have robust training programs, and I'm not looking for a fine. I'm looking for somebody to get a job. And if it takes us a much longer to get the job done because our people aren't trained, then so be it.
Okay. What about city services?
Yes.
And when I speak on city services, the thing that I want to speak on is in the wintertime. snow removal.
Yes.
For us being a very large city, and this is me just speaking as a citizen, very large city with all these different departments, why is it so hard for us to get our neighborhood streets plowed? Whereas smaller cities that does not even have the same resources or equipment as Detroit, their whole city is plowed within a matter of hours after a snowfall. What is it that can be done, and why isn't it done?
Well, what you have to understand, this is not an excuse, but this is just to give you context.
Okay.
The city of Detroit is 137.5 square mile area. Within the city of Detroit, I think we've got something like 1,500 miles of actual streets in the city of Detroit. That's a lot of land, a lot of surface for a population that's only 670,000 people, 1/3 of what it used to be. So the land mass that we have to maintain is much larger than, I think you can fit the city of New York, San Francisco. I mean, there were like 5 cities you actually could sit in the city of Detroit, fit in the city of Detroit. So it's a very large area. The issue of they use much more private contractors now than they did, because obviously when they privatized DPW, they eliminated the ability for the city workers to actually do the work, because they used to divert from trash collection to snowplow and snowplow removal. So there's got to be some adjustments made in how we actually do what we do. You know, it's always treading on very sensitive ground when you bring in private contractors to do work that people in the city used to do. And so that's something that I just think we just got to continue to work through it, to provide a vehicle to ensure that if the city worker can do the job, a city worker needs to do the job. And if there's something that the city worker can't do, then we got to figure out how we get that done.
Yeah, and I just look at it from the outside. You see the city trucks out here. You see the light trucks out here. You see the water department trucks.
Right.
They all have plow blades on there.
Yeah.
So for me, from my standpoint, it's like, hey, why can't they just break it down up in all these different departments? Just say, hey, for the convenience of the residents,
Right.
just plow a block or two.
You know what?
Plow a block or two.
That's a great plan, man.
I don't see what's so hard about it.
I'm gonna bring you downtown, man. I'm gonna say if your streets haven't been plowed, please call Director Lavish Williams. I'll let you take all those phone calls.
No,
because you have a solution to the problem.
You know, and I don't know what the solution could be for the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm looking at it as a citizen, as a resident. When you see these different departments that have the capabilities of plowing the streets,
Right.
but they don't.
Right.
And then you have senior citizens. You still have a lot of senior citizens that's disabled,
Right.
that still move, they still walk, they still go to the store, wheelchairs, walkers. And when the snow come,
Yes.
they're disabled. They can't do that just because of the snow.
But that's where part of the community working together comes together. You know, when we were growing up, you're a guy who you're resourceful. If it was snow on the ground, when you saw the snow that night, you had your shovel first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And you were walking the block,
Knocking
"Hey, Ms.
on
Johnson,
doors."
and you helped literally clean your own block because people would pay you $5, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a sense of community, and you learn entrepreneurship. You learn how to market yourself. These are skills that our kids desperately need. We need to be talking more about entrepreneurship. Don't, when it's snow, you sit in your room and play with your Playbox or Xbox. Get out in the street, make you some money. Get your hustle on, and get the good hustle, not the bad
A lot of
hustle.
people, they don't know what it takes to hustle nowadays.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is because it's all about technology and video games.
Yeah, when it's about getting out the house, man, we got to get kids out the house. I mean, we stayed out the house. They had to drag us in the house. Kids now, you got to drag them out the house.
But that's still sidewalk issues.
Yeah.
We talking about a lot of street issues. You get a lot of cars. It becomes a safety issue because you get this Challenger that's a rear-wheel drive car. He's out in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Now he's stuck.
Well, let's talk about these Challengers driving through our city like this is Indianapolis 500. People driving crazy in the city of Detroit. You need to slow your butts down. I didn't want to use butt. People are driving too fast. You know, I ride my bike a lot.
What kind of bike?
I have just a little regular.
Okay, a pedal bike.
Pedal bike. I can't fool with that motorized stuff. I could never handle the Harley for some reason.
Oh man, it's easy.
Man, so I'm driving my bike one morning. I'm riding down Houston Whittier because I live on the east side, and I heard this rumble. And about time this Charger got up on me, Hellcat, he had to been doing 120 miles an hour. blowing through the city like it wasn't nothing. People are killing our kids. They're killing themselves. We need a place. If people want to speed, it needs to be a dedicated place where you can go. I mean, some of these car situations with drifting in Grand River, and I mean, they take over the streets. We got to stop that. It's bad for our people in the neighborhood. It's killing our young people, and we've got to do a much better job of saying, hey, if this is what you want to do, then this is where you need to do that.
Right. So what do you propose? Because I'm a car guy.
Okay.
And
You have a Hellcat? Maybe that was you.
No, I don't have one of those. I'm a Chevy guy. I'm a
Okay.
Chevy guy.
All right.
Chevy. 63 Impala, 57 Chevy.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Is it in the garage?
No, it's down at the building.
All right, I gotta go drive that one day, man.
So here's my question.
Right.
You have a guy like myself. I'm a car guy. I'm a bike guy. I grew up in the 90s. So in that era, we had Jefferson. We had Belle Isle.
Right.
That was our strip. That was our place where all the cool cars.
But y'all wasn't driving 100 miles down the
We
strip.
were not doing that.
Okay.
I'm
That's
going to
one
say
thing
that. We wasn't doing that. At that particular time, it was about going slow.
It was going slow.
Being
because
seen.
You wanted to be seen.
Talking to the females or, females talking to the guys
The
or
young
whatever the
ladies.
case is.
Okay, all right.
Now, fast forward the time, we don't even have that right now.
Well,
Because-
it's actually being pushed in neighborhoods because I was coming home one night. I was coming down Kercheval or maybe Charlevoix, and I came up on a crowd of people, and there must have been 400 people just literally just hanging out on the block. So what they're doing is they're being forced out, or there's certain parks, like you go down to Harris Park at night,
Right.
it gets pretty interesting down there. So they're being forced into parks and doing things that they shouldn't really necessarily be doing. Like one time I brought up in the Harris Park, I see the brothers, shooting craps. I'm saying, brothers, now y'all know as soon as the guy come, it's gonna be an issue. If you're gonna do it, at least take it to the back of the park, don't be in the front of the park. But we've got to provide safe spaces for people to do the natural things that young people do.
Right.
Young people want to be seen. They want to have their nice cars, so the young lady say, "Oh, he cute." I get all that. So we got to provide the places for them. Now you're talking about a city of 138 square miles, 137 and a half square miles. We've got large tracts of vacant land in the city.
Correct.
Of Detroit.
Correct.
So while we not repurposing, and we can also create water conservation districts, so when it rains, you may not necessarily be able to use the park for that, but it's an area where we can come, everything is safe, and we keep things under control. We all were adolescents at one time. We all wanted to be the hot guy, the hot girl. I get all that. Let's just do it safe. Let's provide what our young people need so that they can come home at night.
Right, that's what I feel should happen. Give us a place, because we're not, and when I say we, I'm speaking as far as a guy who's in the cars and the motorcycles.
Right.
I'm not saying we want to go fast, because everybody's not into the fast, speeding, racing, just speeding. Mm-hmm. But we do know people race cars.
Yeah.
But we're not, it's a difference from the car racers and just the people that's speeding.
It's a difference.
It's a difference because you have car racers. Yeah, they know they're not supposed to do it, but here it is. They'll go out there. 20 minutes later, they're ghosts. And they're gone. Right. But the cars, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You can chase them from here. You can chase them from there. They're gonna go over there. We need a place where, hey, let these guys be to themselves.
So why can't we not have a Detroit International Speedway?
That's a great question. Why can't we?
Why can't we not? We got Roger Penske, who owns the Indianapolis 500. And I'm not trying to give business to billionaires because he got enough money. I don't count his money, but he do have a lot. All these people have money. So if you're telling me that we're trying to create an environment for people to do the things that they need to do, but it means that when you show up, you got to show your proof of insurance. You got to show you got a driver's license. You got to show the things that you need to show in order to participate in that. And why can't we do that? Why can't we use our money to create that type of environment? I mean, the ideal area, quite frankly, really would be the area around City Airport. I mean, when you drive down Van Dyke 6 Mile, you can go pretty far down there. You only see a few houses over there.
Yeah.
If they're going to take it and expand it for something, There might be an area because it's kind of isolated from a lot of neighborhoods. You have a buffer in the airport from the folk who live, east of Connor, Gunston area. I mean, we just have to look at that to figure out where it can go. But it's something that we should look at because we got too many people getting killed. They driving into churches and they're hitting young people. And we got to do something differently is all I'm saying. And I think that's something that we can do.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it. I mean, it's always been talked about getting these guys, someplace to go, but we do need our own little park,
right.
A car park. I mean, they have dog parks, they have skate parks, they have all these other little parks, but we need a place in the area here where we can go without being harassed.
Exactly. Because they understand how much police resources are being used to kind of try to manage that whole process.
And most of the time, we police our own. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because
to a degree, we have a better relationship with the people that's out there than when the police.
Them your people. So
right.
You say, man, you're acting crazy, and they're going to get mad at you for fronting them off for a minute, but then they understand it's all about love.
Yeah. How do you feel about the public safety as far as the police? And I'm not, it's a mayor's issue because everything comes from
you wouldn't
office.
You wouldn't know it from this mayor who's conveniently hid himself behind the issue of crime. And he threw, Republican gubernatorial candidate James Craig out there to lead the pack. I believe that the mayor should be intimately involved in public safety because the number one issue of people being is afraid in their homes. And the mayor has to be a voice to constantly advocate for public safety. He cannot hide behind the chief. He's got to be the face of the issue and direct resources. Part of the issue in Detroit is how we actually spend our money to police ourselves. If spending money was the solution to the problem, we would not have crime because over the last 10 years, we spent close to $3.5 billion on policing ourselves. And that crime rate has not appreciably impacted. And so part of what I've been talking about is the impact of poverty and crime. They intersect in a very neat angle because when you got high poverty, you're going to have high crime.
You're going to have high crime.
And so part of what we have to do is begin to address some of the underlying issues of how poverty is impacting our community, whether it's lack of education opportunities, whether it's lack of job skills and training. We've got to be much more intentional and interventional in how we approach crime. And so part of what I've advocated for is hiring what I call community intervention specialists, people who are not technically a police officer, but they might be a social service director. They might be a social worker. They could be a mental health professional. They could be a gang intervention specialist. They could be a psychologist to go out and talk with people before we have issues that arise. We all know that when the bullets fly on a drive-by, we already know before the bullet hit the floor who fired the bullet, and we know the beef is coming. So why are we not using programs like ceasefire in a much more aggressive manner? We got people that are out there who are trying to do the work, but they're not being funded at the levels that they need to be funded at in order to address the problem. And then when I intervene with you on an intervention strategy, how do I then begin the process of trying to provide you with a way on how you can move your life forward? It makes no difference to me if I talk to you about not killing someone when you don't have a pathway on how you're gonna live a productive life, and so you're still trapped in a cycle of poverty and violence that we have to begin to move our young men and now, unfortunately, a lot of our young women out of that life, provide them with a real career path on how they can live in an effective manner. And I think if we gotta be committed to that. When I said 911, it's 911. Gun violence in our community is off the chain. You can't sleep in some neighborhoods at night because of gun violence. And the scatter shot, they're scattered all around chasing bullets all day long. We got to be much more intentional. We have to intervene much more. We have to provide people with the opportunity to change their lives. I think if we do that, we'll put ourselves in a much better position on how we police ourselves. And then we have to begin to decriminalize certain types of things that occur in the city. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but you see somebody with a bad equipment light on their car, they got a bad tag. Well, we know it because they ain't got the money. They can't get the insurance because insurance rates are still high.
Yeah.
So instead of me giving you a ticket for a bad tag or a bad light here, I'm just going to say, hey, man, your light is out. Maybe you didn't know it. I'm not going to criminalize that type of conduct because it's directly tied to poverty. If I catch the young kids in the park at night, I'm not writing a misdemeanor ticket. I'm telling you to go home, get out the park. We got to begin to decriminalize.
And I guess that will come with what you call great community policing.
Exactly.
That would be that. I got a question.
Question.
I got a question that's in here.
Okay.
Let me pull it back up right here.
I see the questions are flowing in.
Ask Mr. Adams. This is from Summer Moore Crawford.
Summer Moore Crawford,
which has called me today.
Yeah, I know
I
she
talked
did.
to her today.
I talked to her for 2 hours one day.
Okay.
It's all good.
She says, "What former city of Detroit mayor endorsed you?"
I haven't asked any to endorse me. I'm running on my own platform.
Okay.
If they want to step up and endorse me, I'll be more than happy to take the endorsement. But I'm running on my own plan. I'm running on my own agenda. I'm running on my own record.
Okay. I guess that answered that question. I got another one right here. It was a comment.
Okay.
Samuel Donald. He said that tax break for 38,000 local businesses to hire one person. Yes, he's in agreement to that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Donald. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Anybody else got any questions? If anybody got some questions that they want to ask, they could definitely chime in. We can see the comments as they come in. So if you got some questions while we're here live with Mr. Anthony Adams, please feel free to ask them.
Well, I know that I just want to plug it. Oftentimes people come up with questions after the fact.
Okay.
And so they can always go to my website, anthonyadams4mayor.com. I actually answer every email that comes in. It takes a little time, but if I'm going to be connected with the community, I need to take that time. And my email address is aa4mayor, the number 4, @gmail.com. So I always try to get back to people to answer that question because people, they may think of something after the fact that they want to ask me. And I'm certainly available to do that because I'm trying to win people's support. I'm trying to get people excited about this election. And the election is not in November. This is in August. We got to make a strong statement in August that it's time for change.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the August 3rd primary election.
Of which you're on the ballot.
Actually, let me share this. Let me share this.
You didn't get kicked off, did you?
I didn't know. Okay. I worked too hard. So me, Lavish T. Williams, I am not on the August 3rd ballot. I'm going straight to the general election. Okay. So I'll be on the November's ballot.
So you don't have a primary then?
I do not have a primary.
One other candidate in the race.
It's only one other candidate.
We won't mention his name because
we're not going to We're not going to worry about that individual. We're going to focus on me. I'm running for Detroit Police Commissioner for District 2. So whoever's out there watching, share the word. I don't need any of your money, at least not right now. But donations are very welcomed if you have some donations. But all I ask any and everybody out there to do, if you can just share the word, go on my page and share my campaign flyer, push it out there so more people can see, hey, I'm running for District 2 Board of Police Commissioners to be the next police commissioner. And a lot of people, they ask, they say, hey, so you're running to take James Craig's spot? I get that. No. I won't go into more detail about what the police commissioner's job entails or whatever. If you need to know something now, you can go on my page. I got a lot of information. You can check out the website, lavishtwilliams.com. So there it is.
Right.
I got some other questions that came in. I got somebody else that commented in. Charles Green, he's a good friend of mine.
All right.
He asked, or he says, great show, Lavish. Keep up what you're doing.
All right.
Doing great service for the community. Absolutely. I'm community involved. So yeah. Let me see. We got another question down here. This is from Reaction Jones. Okay. What's your plan for the recreation centers?
Oh, great.
Good question.
Yeah,
good question.
That is. Because we've got to reopen our rec centers. And the irony is that we've actually sold off a number of rec centers during the course of this past administration. That practice has to stop, and we've got to devote much more in our resources to recreation. And so part of my plan to reopen a lot of centers is to use some of the $800 million and $850 million in funding that the city is going to get to invest in our young people. Our young people need facilities that they can go to. We've also got to work much more closer with the school district. The school district has gyms and facilities that should be open and should be accessible to our young people. And so part of it is using some of the federal dollars that we get to reopen our centers, being much more aggressive in soliciting philanthropic dollars to support our recreation, and also working in concert with our school system to ensure that their facilities are open, that their community use agreements are in place, and that we provide people with access to those facilities so that our young people have places to go. We've also got to use our training programs and training dollars to provide services in these facilities so that our young people not only can recreate, but they also can become educated.
Okay. Another question from my dear friend Kelly.
Okay.
What are we going to do about the vacant school buildings?
Yeah, well,
there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, well, first of all, the school district has got to do their job. Okay. You can't have vacant, burnout buildings in the city of Detroit and you're not maintaining. Part of what they would say is that we don't have the dollars to do that. Well, the school system is getting close to $949 million. I think they got their first 50% of that money last month or last week. And so they got to spend some of those dollars to clean up and repurpose some of those facilities. Part of what we're missing in the city is that we don't have a lot of youth facilities, transitional housing programs for our young people in the city of Detroit. I was at a church not too long ago, Rose of Sharon Church on the east side, State Fair, and Conant, and a young lady told me, she says, my home life is whack. But those were her words, not mine. She says, I come home at night, and there's things that I see that I shouldn't be seeing. I need some place to go, but I have nowhere to go. How can you help me? And so I'm saying that we can repurpose some of these schools to provide for transitional housing services for our people, the wraparound services that our young people need. If I got a young lady at 13 who knows that her home life is wacky and she needs something else to do, we've got to create facilities for that our young people can move into, that they can have the type of life and live in the type of environment that they want. Those are the ways we need to repurpose some of these schools, community centers, training systems, transitional housing. We've got to do something much different than what we're doing. But they got to clean up. They got to spend some of that money to clean up these buildings, to eliminate the graffiti, and to repurpose these facilities for something that can be used.
Okay. Do we got any more questions? We don't have any at the moment, but I'm sure when they come in, we'll definitely ask them as they come up.
Great.
While we got Anthony Adams, the mayoral candidate. Come on, I know y'all got some questions y'all want to ask.
I think I've answered all the questions, man.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of people, they got to ask these questions. They got to ask some questions.
You better ask the questions.
Because when we get this guy in office,
yes,
we don't want you guys to have questions after the fact and you didn't get the right answer. Cause we don't know what might happen down the road.
Well, we know what's going to happen. Let me tell you what's going to happen.
Okay, I'm listening.
What's going to happen is that I'm going to do what I'm saying I'm going to do, which is maintain in constant communication with the community. That's going to happen because that's who I am. Secondly, I will be moving forward a very aggressive agenda to help the people in the city of Detroit. I'm going to lay out very clearly the steps that we've taken in order to improve the quality of people's lives. Thirdly, I'm going to make sure that the corporations that exist in this city do what they're supposed to do, which is provide the level of benefit, the level of employment, the level of contracting opportunities for people who live in the city of Detroit. We're also going to make sure that our health institutions provide quality access and health care, that we deal with the inequitable distribution of health resources in our community to provide our people with what they need, whether it's health facilities, whether it's mental health facilities. I'm a big proponent of that. We also have to make sure that the people in our community have healthy food options in the city of Detroit. If I'm providing subsidies for somebody to do something, I'd rather provide a subsidy or a tax break for someone who's going to provide healthy food in our community. Those are the types of things that if we're going to use a subsidy, that's what I think they should be used for.
All right. We got another question that came in, another one from Reaction Jones. And his question reads, do you plan on putting officers back in the neighborhoods on feet and bicycles?
That would be nice. And when you look at the level of staffing at DPD, it's something that they probably would not necessarily be inclined to do. But I think you have to, the officers have to be connected with the community. You know, part of what happens now is that they ride through the neighborhoods almost as fast as the guys in the Chargers. They moving pretty fast to get from point A to point B. A part of the reason for that is they're responding to calls for service that don't necessarily require a police officer to respond to. And so when you begin to reshape policing in the city of Detroit and how we do what we do, there would be a reduced emphasis on using police officers for a lot of things that handling a homeless person, dealing with mental health issues. Why are we sending police officers? Because we know when we send a police officer, it can only be a good or a bad result. And most of the time, it's a bad result. So by using community intervention specialists to deal with a lot of the mundane issues of what goes on in the city, we can reduce the calls of services so that officers can then begin to have a relationship with the community. And we've got to aggressively recruit young people to being a police officer, which means we can't demonize the police all the time because not all cops are bad. And so we've got to make the profession of policing a noble one, which means we've got to increase the quality of the pay. We also have to increase the quality of the training. We got to make that a valuable career path for young people to want to pursue.
Why is it so hard? Here we go again. I want to compare Detroit, big city,
Right.
small city.
Right.
Why is it that the officers make what they make compared to these other smaller cities?
Well, when you look at the size of the city's budget and what we actually allocate to the police department, it is the largest single expenditure item in the budget. It represents almost, I think, about 35%. When you look at public safety, if we're spending $350 million on policing, we might be spending $200 million on firefighting. So you're spending close to half of the budget on public safety. That's a big number. And when you look at the size of the benefit structure, which has been dramatically reduced over time because the bankruptcy reduced the amount of what the benefits are. So we spend a lot of money on public safety in the city of Detroit. And I think that we're probably spending too much money and not getting the benefit that we need to get. The reason that we're having trouble recruiting officers in the city of Detroit is that the qualifications of police officers are not technically determined by the city of Detroit. They're determined by the state of Michigan, an institution known as the MCOs, Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, which sets the standards. So which means that a lot of young people in Detroit, when they apply to become police officers, they have to get kicked out in the MCOs process because they got bad driving records. Well, of course they got bad driving record because if you're over policing your community and every time you see a young black man and you stop him and you give him a ticket for something, he gonna have a bad record. And so I'm saying that, okay, I got a young man who maybe his driving record is not as good as it needs to be. So I'm gonna put you into a training program where you become a community intervention specialist. You're gonna prove that this is what you wanna do. And over time, over a year perhaps, that maybe we apply for some waivers to get you on the force because you've already demonstrated your commitment to do what you need to do. I'm saying we gotta look at these things differently.
But after you get on the force, the
Right.
pay, the money, that's what I'm focused on.
Right.
Like, why is it that we're in one of the most dangerous cities in the state?
Yes,
The officers, they go out here, they put their life on the line daily
they do.
for the least amount of pay
Right.
throughout the state.
Okay, but understand what you're saying. When every dollar you increase the police department budget is a dollar less you're gonna have someplace else to spend. And so what you've got to do is you've got to create the right mix of pay and benefits and incentives. Maybe the incentive is you can get a no interest loan to get a house in the city of Detroit that provides you with a benefit that it shows up as almost a post-tax benefit that you get. There's some certain things that we need to do in order to, because if we can't keep increasing the size of, I believe there should be some adjustment in their salaries, no doubt about that. But what we have to do is we have to make sure that we don't, quote, break the bank, because we could pay police officers $50,000 a year, which meant we would be paying them an additional over their starting salary. It might be another $10,000 over their starting salary, which means that that's another $20 million, $30 million in extra funding for the police department budget. When I got people clamoring to say we need to be reducing that, we need to defund the police and all that. Well, I'm not into defunding the police. Let me just say that.
Okay, that was another question.
Yeah.
That was brought up. Do you support defunding the police fund, the police to fund other services that could support the community? That's from Cheryl Sullivan.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ms. Sullivan. So what we have to do is understand how all these things fit together. For example, mental health facilities, we have Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network. They have about $800 million in funding for mental health issues and mental health treatment in the city of Detroit. Now, they've begun to allocate a little portion of those dollars, but we got to allocate a much larger portion of those dollars. There's some things in the city of Detroit, for example, we got a lot of specialty bureaus within the department that we probably need to do away with. And so by reducing the number of specialty bureaus within the department, we can begin to shift those dollars into more intervention strategies, community-based policing strategies. And so I do believe that we need to reprioritize the budget within the police department to hit the areas where we know we need help. We know we need health and mental health. We know we need help in social work. We know we need help in gang intervention. We've got to put the dollars in those areas because I think we'll get a much bigger bang for our buck if we do that.
Now, people have been hearing defund the police.
Yes.
Defund the police department. Defunding the police in the police department is not getting rid of the police.
No, it isn't.
It's taking dollars.
It depends on who you talk to.
So let me hear your definition, because for me, defunding the police is, hey, instead of the police spending millions of dollars on unnecessary stuff like military tanks and XYZ, let's take this money and spend it over there.
Absolutely agree.
Okay, great. Your definition of defunding the police would be what?
My definition would be to reprioritize exactly how we spend the dollars that are allocated for public safety. To the extent that we need to begin to reduce the amount of militarization of our police department, we need to do that. Understand that a lot of that money comes from federal grants that comes into the city to help pay for those types of toys.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we're providing the level of services that we need to address issues that are common in our community, whether mental health issues, whether it's intervention, gang strategy issues. Those things we need to put more dollars in. When I talk about what I'm going to do and how I'm prioritizing my funding, that's how I'm moving the money. I'm moving the money where it needs to be, which takes money out of it. It does defund certain programs, but it funds the programs that we need in order to provide the services that we need to the people in the city.
So you're halfway in.
No,
as
I'm
far
all the
as
way
defunding
in. I'm all the way
police.
in. I'm all the way in.
So you're in for defunding.
On my strategy and my approach. As I told some young activists, I said, I can do everything that you want to do and never use the term defund. Would you be happy with that?
Well, would that
what
be
do you need for me to say I got to defund?
Would that be a play on words?
It is a play on words, because all I'm saying is that we got to move it forward and we got to address what we need to address and spend the dollars where we need to spend them.
Okay, now I want to go back
If
on.
I'm on the east side and I tell some old senior citizen I'm gonna defund the police, she'd be like, "Boy, I'm trying to make sure the police come when I call them."
Well, people got to be more educated, and if it's hard, I would say you can't really play on the words to a lot of different individuals because a lot of people are they're miseducated on things. So when they hear you talk around it,
Right.
and not necessarily talk around it, you might be saying everything directly, but your wordplay
Right.
might make a big difference.
But that's why we have to talk with people and talk it out. And once you understand what I'm saying, because I got to tell you, look, I don't believe that they should spend millions of dollars on military equipment. I definitely don't believe that they should be spending $1 million on facial recognition technology. And so
I don't think so either about
I can
that.
say I will defund those efforts,
Yeah.
because straight up they need to be defunded.
What's your views on the facial recognition?
It needs to be scrapped.
So here you go. You post a picture on Facebook.
Yes.
How many times has facial recognition picked you up, let's just say, and compared you to John Sally?
Yeah, I've been misidentified a lot, in part because I got the bald head and the goatee. I get misidentified a lot with that tagging. Is this a picture of you? And most of the time I actually ignore it because I don't want them in their system, because it is a surveillance world that we live in. Oftentimes, I don't tag myself on pictures, even though it's me, because I don't want them getting a bead on me and who I am and where I am all the time. Okay. That's just my own little paranoia about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, we got to speak on, because here we go. You might violate someone's civil rights.
And it's happened.
Just because of the facial recognition.
Right.
That identified you as somebody that you're not.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem too.
There's some internal, it's been proven that facial recognition technology is discriminatory against black folks. So I don't know why the largest blackest city in America would use a technology that's been proven to be racially discriminatory against black folks.
I agree. We got another question from Kelly again. What are we doing about the homeless, and will we increase the number of homeless shelters and put programs in place for them? Yeah, what can we do about them homeless? It's sad when you go downtown, especially in the wintertime, and you actually seeing these people sleeping on the ground. And they're really homeless people. They're sleeping on the ground, nowhere to go. How can you curb that? How can you help them? What do you have in place, if any, for the homeless?
So part of what we have to recognize is, why are people homeless? And we have certain degrees of it, I would say. We have a large portion of the population of people that are homeless that actually have mental issues. And how do we bring the mental health services to help them transition from being homeless on the street and put them in a meaningful environment? That's kind of one segment of the population. Another segment of the population is people who are homeless because of economic circumstances, and they become homeless because they lost their home. That's another end of the spectrum. And each requires a different level of service and a different approach to what we do. And so part of my emphasis is, first of all, we actually have some very good homeless advocacy agencies in the city of Detroit that actually do this work. And we've got to put people where they are and put them in lanes where they do good things, because not all agencies that are dedicated to the homeless issue do all things well. And so part of what I did when I was deputy mayor and we talked about the homeless situation for the Super Bowl, we had a much different program than what other cities have, because a lot of cities simply round up the homeless folk, take them someplace outside the city, and hope they get back after the Super Bowl is out. Well, we didn't do that. What we did was we coordinated services as amongst various homeless agency providers to figure out who could do what best. So you got some people that are good at housing. You got some people that are good at food service. You got some people who are great at employment and job training. And we assisted them in being in their lane and doing what they need to do. And so part of what we have to do is we got to focus, and it's got to be a coordinated effort to ensure that whatever your problem is, we got to have an avenue that's available to assist in serving you and helping you do what you do. And then providing the services through the homeless advocates, because they understand the population way better than I. They have much more better strategies on how they can bring people in. And at the end of the day, we just have to work like hell to provide folk with what they need in order to move them into a structured environment. Because a lot of folk, they have mental issues and they just don't want to necessarily be in that structure. So how do we help you with temporary situations? We have a lot of temporary housing situations. We have NSO, which is probably one of the largest homeless providers in the city of Detroit. And they just have to make sure that people do what they're supposed to do. I don't think there's any level of accountability, because in the political construct, everybody know everybody. And so people don't necessarily want to call out their friends, because I know you run the agency, so I can't really get on you. Well, it's time out for that, because people are hurting. Services have to be provided, and we have to hold people accountable to do their jobs. And if they aren't doing their jobs, we got to figure out why they aren't doing their jobs and how do we help them do their job better.
All right. Got a question from Jaleesa Hughes. I hope I said your name right. Okay. She said, I never heard of you, Mr. Adams. Okay. When would you start walking and being visible in neighborhoods? Yes, the rough parts too.
Yeah.
Do you have a list of scheduled dates per district area?
What I do actually is I'm in the neighborhoods every day of the week. I drive every part of the city, and I don't drive the good parts because I know they're okay. I'm driving the bad parts of the city, and I'm stopping my car, and I'm getting out block by block talking to people who's sitting on their front porch, who's cutting their grass. So if you give me your address and your street, I will certainly come through and visit you and talk with your neighborhoods, because I believe that the best way for you to understand who I am and my concern and compassion about the people who live in the city is for me to come talk to you on your porch.
All right. We got Summer Moore Crawford again. She says, what are your plans, Mr. Adams, to connect with voters under the age of 35 and low turnout areas?
Okay, so that is what I call the Georgia of Detroit. When you look at the breakdown of voters in the city, they say we have about 425,000 voters registered in the city of Detroit. It says as high as 500,000, but I don't think that's statistically possible. In the last mayor's race, we had maybe 100,000 people vote. In the last presidential race, we had 250,000 people vote. So we had 150,000 people who don't vote in the mayor's race that vote in the gubernatorial or presidential race. And so part of my approach, obviously, one is to use the technology. You know, I've gotten up on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm doing the kind of things that you need to do. I'm texting a lot more now to connect with those voters. I have some very young people who are on my staff who are under 35 who are trying to school me and educate me in the ways of how we connect with young people. And so I'm always looking for more venues to outreach, to reach the non-likely voters, because I believe that the non-likely voters are the key to my victory. If I can increase that number by 50,000 more people, I can win because I'm bringing way more people into the race that have never voted before. And I've seen that happen. I've seen it happen in 2005 where a guy was outspent by millions of dollars, and yet his connection with the community and his ability to arouse people to come to vote, because I'm talking about what you want to hear. I'm talking about how we create more entrepreneurship for young people in the city of Detroit. I'm talking about how we provide you with the funding necessary to grow your own business, because young people today ain't necessarily trying to get a job with Ford to work, 40 hours a week in a factory. They're trying to figure out how they can do what they want to do. How do I create the environment for you? And that's the type of things that I'm speaking to for our young people, because I believe that they are the key. They need to be trained in the ways of how to manage the city, which is why we got to bring more young people in the city government. I'm trying to speak to their issues and their concerns, and hopefully that they will see what I'm saying and feel my commitment, because this is really all about feel. Do you really feel me? Do you really understand and believe that I can do what I say I can do? And I just ask that you give me the opportunity to open your heart and understand that my program is way more progressive as it relates to young people than any program that's out there.
All right. So we got another comment from Gerbina Sturdivant. And how can nonprofits get funding from the city to help the community of Detroit that's hungry and homeless?
Great. Oh, yeah, I love that, because part of the big problem with the city is that it has a huge administrative bureaucracy that's managing and administering economic development. I believe that that shouldn't be the case. I believe that the bureaucracy should actually be stripped down to a very minimal, and that the dollars that are being spent on administration need to go directly to community organizations and groups that are actually doing the work. We have a very robust community development, nonprofit community in our city, and yet they're being underfunded because we're stripping away a lot of resources that could go to provide direct services and handling that in an administrative fashion. I believe those dollars need to be released, that the number of people employed by the government should be reduced, and that the dollars should be put back in organizations who provide homeless programs as well as hunger programs in the city of Detroit.
All right. We got Cheryl Sullivan. If elected, what 3 steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing? I was going to ask that question too.
So when you deal with the city's financial footing, I guess there are a number of things that we can understand. Obviously, we've gotten a lot of federal funding over the last year because of the COVID situation. I think by my own estimates, we've gotten about $1.1 billion in funding. And so part of what we need to do is, one, we have to make sure that we continue to live within our means, which is very simple budgeting. You got revenue, you got expenses. They do multi-year budgeting now, so you kind of, instead of doing every year, I think they do every 2 or 3 years budgeting. So you got to live within your communities. You also have to make sure that your expenses do not increase dramatically over what your revenue is. And since I manage the city's budget as deputy mayor, I was over the finance department. I gave a lot of instruction on the rating agency presentations and things that they did. I clearly understand what that process is and how we also have to live within our means. But we also have to ensure that the residents of the city get exactly what they need, and ensuring that essential services always are maintained at a very, very high level. It's not that difficult if you understand economic trends and what's happening in the city. And the city is getting close to $1 billion in free money that allows it to backstop, not to spend crazy, but to invest in things that we need to strengthen our infrastructure and strengthen our ability to provide services to our residents in the city.
All right. Reaction Jones asked again. We talked about this earlier in the show, but he wasn't here to hear, so we're gonna ask again. As downtown is being revamped, what's your plan for the neighborhoods?
Okay, so very simply, that's where the dollars will go. When you look at the economic development dollars and how I'm spending that money, that will be spent in the neighborhoods. I don't believe that downtown needs to get anything else. Then there are other neighborhoods in the city that are pretty strong and pretty stable, whether it's Palmer Woods, Sherwood Forest, Green Acres, Roseville. Those communities are pretty strong. They don't really need a lot of new stuff. They need new investment, but they don't need a lot of new stuff. And so when I'm talking about affordable housing dollars, when I'm talking about infrastructure dollars, all those dollars will be committed and spent in the neighborhoods where they're most needed. And we have a hierarchy of needs of neighborhoods that clearly need to get additional services and additional investment, and we need to make sure that that can happen.
All right, that's great. Let me see here. Gerbina asked, she made another statement. My nonprofit helps the community in Detroit, and I've never been able to get funding to help me with the community.
Well, that's going to change.
And she also said, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. All right. Well, at least I won over one voter today. One voter at a time.
What would you do about the abandoned houses?
Oh, man. Well, you know, the voters have already allocated another $250,000. We do have a affordable housing issue in the city of Detroit, and we got to create more affordable housing for people in the city of Detroit. And so part of the philosophy and the approach is to repurpose abandoned houses into houses that can be habitated by people who live in the city of Detroit. How do we use our affordable housing dollars to make that happen? How do we put the pressure on the banks in the city to lend to create home ownership opportunities where people need? There are a number of federal programs, 231D4, I think, which is a program where you can, if you pick out a house and you want to rehab that house, there's a federal support that will allow you to rehab that house and to get a low-interest mortgage. Those are the kind of programs that we need to be focused in on, making sure that these houses can be used and using our affordable dollars to create home ownership for people in the city of Detroit.
All right. The other comment, it didn't show up, but it's it should. I didn't want to go there, but I'm going to go there. I'm going to ask. It's about the charter and the charter revision.
Yes, the charter.
What's your views? What's your views on the charter revisions,
Yes.
The talks about the charter? You have one-sided people. You have people over here, they don't want to change the charter. They think it's fine. You have another side, they want to change it. They want to update it.
Yes.
It needs, as they say, it needs revisions made to it. What's your take on the whole charter issue?
So first off, I applaud the work of the people who spent the last 2 years, I think, working on the charter. You had more than 300 organizations that took the time to participate in the numerous meetings that the Charter Commission had. And I probably attended maybe 7 to 10 of those meetings myself just to see what was going on, because I was seeing the news reports, and I always like to see things for myself. That being said, I believe that the charter should be put on the ballot. I believe that there should always be a robust conversation about what the charter should be. So when you tell me that a charter is an aspirational document that kind of sets the goals of the city, no one would argue that the city should not have more affordable housing. No one can argue against the fact that that we should have a water affordability plan in the city of Detroit. No one should even really argue about the fact that maybe having an elected fire commission is a good thing because we have an elected police commission. The voters need to understand what's in the charter, and we need to be able to debate and discuss what's in it. And I think the heavy-handed tactics, the backroom deals that were cut to keep that charter off the ballot is an abomination. I think that when you have an administration that didn't participate not once in the charter process, only to show up at the 11th hour and say, oh, my God, it's going to bankrupt the city. Well, hell, when they wanted to spend $100 million and give it to Mattie Maroon for the Chrysler Jefferson project, they didn't say it was going to bankrupt the city. Or put another $80 million in Tony Suave's pocket. They didn't say that was going to bankrupt the city. Or give Mike Higgins, I believe, gave him relief tickets and blight tickets. They said that didn't bankrupt the city. So why is it that a document that the citizens should discuss It should be put on the ballot, and we should be able to debate that issue. Clearly, I don't agree with everything that's in that charter, but I do believe that when you talk about voter education and people understanding why things are the way they are, it needs to be put on the ballot.
Yeah, I think that it wouldn't hurt. I
Right.
think that it should be. I mean, again, it goes back to what I discussed and talked about earlier.
Right.
People should be involved. If we're the voters and
Right.
we're electing this,
Yes.
we should know what we're electing.
Exactly.
We should have communication. We should know what's going on. We should have the right to say how we feel,
Right.
voice our opinions, where far too many times we're not being heard.
Well, and this is a classic example of it's another type of voter suppression because this is a voter suppression of information. And a population is not informed. It's not a population that's going to make intelligent decisions. And no one should ever be afraid about discussing any aspect of city operation, city government, or the charter. And I think it's just sad that it shows us the heavy-handed tactics of what people will do in order to keep people uninformed.
I agree. We got another question here from Cheryl Sullivan again. And it says, it is more important for a mayor to be respectable, a respectable community figurehead, or, okay, is it more important for a mayor to be a respectable community figurehead or a competent and skillful administrator?
I think they have to be both. I think that if you're representing the people in this city, that you have to have a high level of respectability because that builds trust and confidence. The skill almost is a byproduct of all that. And I think you have to have the skill. You have to understand how it all fits together. And I think I've kind of demonstrated, my understanding of the matrix of how all this fits together. But I think respectability is probably the most important trait that you have to have in order to build confidence in the people, because if they respect you, they will trust you, and they will give you the benefit of the doubt on decisions that you make, even if they don't really quite understand why you're doing it.
Okay.
All right.
We got reaction again. A lot of dark places in the city. What's your plan on relighting the city?
Well, so obviously, when there's a part where Dave Bing started the whole process of creating the Public Lighting Authority, and the Public Lighting Authority has a board that's appointed by the mayor. They need to be responsible. And I noticed in certain areas where there isn't as much lighting in other areas that I see in the city of Detroit, we need to re-examine that. We need to examine how they've lit certain portions of the city to ensure that lighting is uniform throughout the city. I know I've ridden down some streets where you might find a light every 400 feet, whereas in some neighborhoods you might find it every 200 feet.
Right.
And so we've got to make sure that it's uniform across the city, because we're paying for it with our taxes. I don't know why they wouldn't have done that to begin with. And we also should be using our Public Lighting Authority, however, as part of our broadband network and how we provide services into our community. There was a proposal early on to actually create a broadband network in the city of Detroit, but when a certain billionaire investor in the city didn't get the contract, it got scrapped. And we need to re-examine that.
All right. Samuel Donald. Can the mayor's office revamp or influence tweaking DPS's vendor process to include more minority businesses?
So what happens there is school districts actually have what they call shared pool purchasing, meaning that I can get a better value for my dollar if I buy goods and services through a pooled vendor that the state offers. Because what that does, that has a dramatic effect of impacting the number of minority vendors who actually can do the work, because a lot of blacks companies are not in the shared pool that the state offers. And so what we have to do, I cannot necessarily influence their policy directly because the mayor has no control over the school district, but what we can talk about is how we can share services, because maybe we share services in a much different manner than what they're currently being done now. I think that would be create an opportunity for the district and the city to work together to increase the level of minority participation.
Okay. We got Gerbina asked another question. Will your administration get these houses demolished? It's been a safety hazard for our community. We touched a little bit about that, but he can elaborate more.
Yeah, we have to. I mean, we've got to. They've got a lot of information. They've done a lot of studies. We spent a lot of money analyzing the problem. Now we need to address the issue and get it done.
So here's a question that I got, and I just want to know when it comes down to monies being spent,
Yes.
wasted dollars. What's the point of going on a neighborhood block that's completely empty and putting new cement down in front of a vacant piece of land?
Yeah.
I see that. I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen abandoned blocks with fresh concrete
Yeah.
in front of one section, 3 brand new squares, nothing else on that block. What's the purpose of that?
So normally in DPW, they have they have a schedule of activities of when things are supposed to be replaced. And if it comes up in the system that the block from point A to point B is supposed to be demolished and rebuilt, then that's kind of what occurs. But it almost is not built on common sense.
Yeah,
Because
it's
if you have
definitely
an
not.
area- If you have an area that there are no houses, you still have people that need to travel the city from area to point A to point B, because you have people who live in these neighborhoods. And so you raised the issue you said earlier about people who are handicapped having the ability to move through the city. And that's part of the reason why it's done that way, because things get old. They need to be replaced on a schedule, and it should be done.
But we talking about a vacant block.
Right.
And in the middle of the vacant block,
Right.
you have 3 fresh poured pieces of concrete slab made for a sidewalk, and the rest of the block is cracked all up. It makes no sense.
Well, it should be much more common sense that's exhibited and demonstrated in that, and I would not argue that point with you.
I think that it should be more, like you say, the common sense factor, but where can we take this work and apply it where it's needed?
Right.
Instead of, okay,
We
the
gotta go
paperwork said this, but let me go back to my boss and say, hey, it's no need to pour it here.
Right.
It's pointless. Can we take it and utilize? But I guess that's too much common sense. Can we utilize it on this block where it's a nice, decent block, or not even a nice, decent block, but it's a neighborhood where kids are at, a family's at, it's a full block and pieces of sidewalk. It's broke all up. Let's use the dollars, or let's use the funds that's already been given to us to replace that concrete.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah, it just makes no
Common
sense to
sense.
me. So what's so different? What's so different about you versus the mayor that's in office now? What do you bring to the table versus what he has done?
Well, I mean, that list is so long, but I'll just give you.
Give me a snippet,
I'll give you a
because
snippet.
I say that because people that don't know you, they know who Duggan is.
Who is that?
It's a guy.
Okay.
They know who the current mayor is.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first thing they need to understand is that I'm just like people who live in the city of Detroit.
Okay.
My kids went to Detroit public schools. I own houses. My first apartment was over on Calvert and LaSalle. I could actually see Central High School from my window. Then had a house in Rosedale Park. My kids marched into Rosedale Park early opening day baseball parade. I've been to hundreds of PSL football, basketball games in this city. I've been to hundreds of POW games. I've hung out at Baker's Keyboard Lounge. I get my shoes shined from Reds over on Oakland Avenue. I'm a part of the community, and I've been a part of this community for a long time. And I've been a part of this community in ways that have benefited the people who live here. I'm a person who was committed, who wholeheartedly believes in the people, and will provide a high level of commitment and quality representation for the people who live here. I have the skills. I have the compassion. I'm a compassionate guy. So when people are down, I feel that they're down because I see it every day. I worked in a number of food delivery programs at churches throughout this community, seeing people at their worst and understand that they need help. And I think that's what separates me, that I have a compassion for the people who live here and a commitment and a concern and a belief that we can truly fundamentally change people's lives. That is the biggest difference between me and the guy who's down there. He doesn't believe in the people who live here. We're all pawns to be moved on a board, to be manipulated, to be spun. I mean, the fact that you have storytellers on your staff. What stories are you telling? People need to hear the truth. People need to be connected with you. You don't need to show up election year with all this big rollout of great things that you're doing. They want little things to be done. And that's the difference between me and him, is that at the end of the day, I fundamentally believe in the people who live here because I've been a part of the people who live here.
Okay. Well, we're gonna end that on that.
right.
We
Great.
we answered a lot of questions.
did.
You said a lot of information. If you want to check out the whole interview, you can just go back to my page. Everything is there.
Great.
If they want to contact you, learn more about you, how can they contact you?
Great. Anthony Adams for Mayor.com. That's FOR Mayor.com. Anthony Adams for Mayor.com. I'm on Twitter, AA Detroit 313. You can get me on Twitter. You can get me on Instagram. My email is AA4Mayor, the number 4Mayor at gmail.com. I'm not going to give you my phone number because I got too many people calling me the way it is, but people have a way of getting my number for some strange reason. I get calls all day and night. My phone rings 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Somebody wants to ask me a question.
All right, now let them know you have something coming up, some type of voter thing coming up. Let them know about that.
It's the Ladies Economic Empowerment Council. Andrea Thompson, real dynamic woman who led the lawsuit against the literacy illiteracy lawsuit against the state of Michigan. We're having an event we're calling Dancing in the Streets. We got Martha Reeves going to show up and show us how to do it the old Motown way. My campaign headquarters, if you want to come by and see me, because I'm always there. If I'm not in the neighborhoods, and that young lady who wanted me to visit her, please make sure that you send me your information, because I do want to get to your neighborhood. My campaign office is at 19512 Livernois. I'm there in the mornings, in the afternoons, and in the evenings, and I'm out and about in the city. So you'll see me out here. All right.
All right, now.
Great.
Everybody, that was Anthony Adams. Appreciate the time. Well, we've been here about 2 hours talking.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's a lot of information. You can feel free to replay this video, to check him out, to hear what he's about, to understand him. If you're interested in him, you can follow him. He gave you all the social media links. His campaign office, Livernois and St. Martin, sits right on the corner. That's Anthony Adams, my guest, Detroit's next mayor. Mayoral candidate 2021.
All right. You said next mayor. I like that part.
Yeah, so let's get it, y'all, man.
All right.
Appreciate everybody from watching.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, it's been
Good
real.
show.